Have you ever considered how computers decide things? How do they determine if something is true or false? Today we are going to immerse ourselves in the fascinating world of the boolean in Python, the key to unlocking the power of the logic in your programs in the next few minutes. You'll find out how to undermine this powerful tool, which is essential, and you can go from being an average programmer to a teacher code. Booleans in Python. There are types of data, just like character strings or strings values that we learned in previous lessons. An example of a string might be Instagram, Python, or banana. In Python, strings are usually enclosed in double quotes or single quotes. Examples of integer values could be, for example, 3, 10, 5, or -20. For example, in booleans we have different types of data, for example true, or for example we have false. A boolean value is used to express whether a given logical condition is true or false. Now in Python we have a function called type, and it is capable of identifying us, the type of variable we are working with. For example, if we write Python here, we know we have a string because it is telling us that we have a type string. If, for example, we use this function to run the integer 4 and we know that we have an integer variable in this case. But what if instead of placing a string or integer, we place the reserved language word truck? It is going to tell us that we have a boolean, and this is the type of variable that we are going to work with today. Now that you know what kind of variables are boolean, let's consider an example. When I embarked on my journey into data science, I realized that we are constantly making decisions. For instance, when we go to get out. In the park, we look at the weather. If it rains, we don't go out to the park and make another plan, or if it doesn't rain, we go out to the park. In programming, it's exactly the same. Should we mark the variable rain as true? And in this case, if it rains, we don't go out to the park or anywhere else. Instance. We could declare it false, and in this case, if it doesn't rain, we go out to the park. In programming, we can use this logic to tackle numerous issues. So, how do we achieve this? In this scenario, we could employ conditionals. And stop. This necessitates employing a fairly straightforward syntax. We would write if it means yes. In this instance, rain equates to true. We give him enter, and by default he will place us. Here's the cursor, 4 spaces. Respecting indexing, we are going to declare a new variable called exit, and in this case, if it rains is equal to true, going out is going to be equal to false. We give it again an enter and leave. We say no, we designate. Exit similarly here. The next step would then be to print what comes out in the output variable. But here by default it is placing the cursor. In this part we see it placed without the indentation to exit the if and else. And for this we simply write print and write exit. If we run the cell, we already know that going out will be false, because if it is raining we cannot go out. In another case, if it rains it is false. We run here and we run here, going out will be true, so if it doesn't rain, we can go out. This example is enough. It is simple to understand, and once this example is understood, let's see some little things about syntax. The first thing is that both true and false must start with a capital letter. The second thing is that this one rains here just like true is not necessary. I simply placed it so that they understood the first part. And this is because, for example, if it rains here this time, we will set the value to true. The if is going to enter and exit. It is going to be assigned to false, but if in this case it is false, the if does not enter. If it does not enter, the else and exit will be. Same as true, with which we could replace this with rain directly, and the syntax will be much easier to understand. Let's look at a second, even easier example to see if we understand it correctly. We are going to declare the variable a, and we are going to assign the value of 5. The variable by, we are going to assign in this case the value of 3. And again, we are going to use the conditional. If in this case, we are going to say if a is greater than b. Here, remember 4 spaces. We are going to place the print message that says, in this case, a is greater than b. We run the cell, and indeed 5 is greater than 3. And therefore, the message of a is greater than b is printed. This happens because in this expression, it is evaluating if a is greater than by. It gives us true if it is correct, or false if it is false. To understand it better, we could insert a new cell and take this condition that is throwing us. In this case, a is greater than b is going to be equal to true. Assign it a variable. In this case, we can place it boolean. We assign here the value of the result, And if we print this boolean variable at the bottom and run exactly has the value of true, we could take this variable and replace it in the syntax that we already have here. That is to say, if in this case we take here boole. Location. Indent by 4 spaces here, and once again place the message indicating that the value of A is greater than B. We run, and automatically the same message is being run, and it is really the same syntax that we are running here, with the difference that we have stored the result of a greater than B in this variable. But what happens if the condition is not met? That is, if for example I had instead of 5 the value of 1.1, we run the cell to store the values in memory, and if we run the boolean expression here, in this case A is not greater than B, so we would have here in boolean equal to false. If we run this condition, the function with the conditional would not print anything, but it would be enough to place an else. In this case, the else has to go to the same level as lift. That is, if not, and print. In this case, A is less than B if we run when A is less than B, for example. A is 1B. Is 3 is going to print A is less than B. In this case, if A is assigned the value of 5, we run the volleyball. It would be assigned the value of true, and when the volleyball is true, the if enters this first level, and A would be greater than B, with which we would have the second example solved. Finally, I want to tell you here something that seems quite curious to me, and that is that in Python, the boolean values true and false are actually subclasses of the integers. This means that true can be used in calculus as the number 1 and false as the number 0. For example, if we stand in this cell and write here true and add the value of 11 plus 1 gives us 2, and false in this case would be representing the value of 0, which is 0 plus 11. We are going to see this in more depth when we are learning logical operators. And that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed these videos. I see you in the next video.